Hey guys, Eddie back with Couch Talk. Welcome back to the show. If it's your first time with us, welcome to the show, guys. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, turn your notifications on, and I promise I will earn your viewership if you stick with me. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do a two-parter, and one of the reasons I'm going to do this is to kind of show you guys the way my mind works, the way I tackle problems, and the way I identify issues, and the way I kind of address them. So today, we're going to tackle a massive one. We're going to tackle campaign elections, the way that our election process works, democracy in action, the way our voting system works, the way our campaign system works, and we're going to see what the issues are and how to address them. Now, when I discuss this issue with both Republicans and Democrats, what I hear is the crux of the issue, the kind of fork in the road, is one side wants voter security and one side wants voter access. Now, I took a look in the Constitution to kind of track if there's a weight toward one or the other, right? And I use the Constitution as kind of my guiding light for a lot of these items because the founding fathers, pretty smart cats, right? They knew what they were doing. And I note that in the Constitution, it's voting is mentioned quite a lot. It's one of the primary issues that's discussed. So it must have been very important to them. And I believe that voting is fundamentally not only a right of each citizen, but also a duty of each citizen. A duty that I believe each citizen should exercise every single chance they get. And I certainly make an effort to do so myself. Now, in the Constitution, they mention several times how these voting rights shouldn't be restricted. So there's, in my mind, a weight toward ensuring access, a weight toward ensuring that the voting rights aren't infringed, a weight toward, keeping voter suppression out of the mix. And there have been several court cases to follow up on this to indicate that voter suppression is not a good thing. Obviously, in a perfect system, we'd have a system where everyone can vote who wants to. Every single voter who chooses to is able to cast a vote. And in a perfect world, every single one of those votes is accurate to that voter. In other words, there's no fraud. There's no votes that are cast that are incorrectly cast, cast in a voter's name but not with that voter's permission, for example, or cast for a voter without their knowledge, right? These things probably happen to a small extent. Now, I'm trying to track exactly how much, and that's going to be part of my research. In part two, I'm going to offer you my opinion on these topics and my solutions for them. But I want to address the problems today. So these are the problems that I see in our system when it comes to campaigns, elections, and voting. Problem number one. We spend way too fucking much money on campaigning. Way too much. Like, this most recent midterm election has already claimed $17 billion. And it's still going, right? I mean, Herschel Walker and Warnock are still going at it down in Georgia. So they're still hammering away. All the challenges, Kerry Lake in Arizona is still challenging. There's still campaigning going on, even though for the most part, most of the spending is done for the most part, but they're still rocking and rolling. It's nuts. $17 billion. Keep in mind, this $17 billion doesn't go toward anything productive other than to try to get a candidate into office who may then do something productive. It's worth noting that when it comes to campaigns in America, the Democrats outspend Republicans 3 or 4 to 1. And I'm not even really sure why. There's definitely a correlation to spending money and winning. You definitely, if you can outspend the other person, that definitely helps. There's a bigger correlation to different types of campaign contributions and how they affect the role. Like I've noticed when people have wide campaign contributions, they have a lot of different people contributing, you know, 5, 10, 20, 50, $100. That usually has a better weight than one or two super PACs, you know, donating several million. But not always, right? Ultimately, the big spenders usually win, right? And so it's no secret that the Democrats have very heavy outlay of cash, and that's one of the reasons that they control the media. Is because of that outlay of cash. Is one of the reasons that their messaging gets through better, and it's smart. Very very smart to control the media with that money. So that's problem number one. We spend way too much money on this. If we think about in our economy with our inflation, do we really need to be spending so much on just campaign contributions, on just getting somebody into office, or is that money maybe better in the citizens' pockets? I would say it's better in the citizens' pockets. One of the problems with those campaign contributions is the way that they're allowed to be dispersed. Individual campaign contributions have limits. Now, the reason they do that is so that someone like Jeff Bezos can't just come along and buy out an election. Obviously, that turns into basically a bribe. You know, I got you elected. Now you have to do whatever helps my business work, right? And so there's a reason that there's a limit, right? And the limit is, I believe, $2,900 for a individual to vote for a president. It's different for senators, different for everybody's got their own limits. But I'm really not sure if they do that, why they allow PACs and, you know, political action committees and like corporate interest groups to virtually have no limit in the amount that they donate. Now, of course, they have to do it in a special way, right? They have to donate to the party, who then donates to the candidate, which, of course, if you're a political action committee, technically you can't have any coordination. But let's be real, guys, there's coordination. Let's be real. If I give somebody $200 million, I'm telling them where I want it. You know, obviously. Technically you can't do that. Technically you can't coordinate. But we all know what's happening. That's another problem. I don't know why corporate bodies are treated like individuals in the sense that they can do their own campaign contributions, but not in the sense that they're limited by the same amount, right? It's odd that individuals are limited where the corporate, I know why, right? So that businesses can basically buy elections. But I just don't understand why we limit the individual if that's exactly what we're trying to avoid, and then we let them have it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Another one of the problems that I see with our election process is gerrymandering, right? And so in our America has the unique situation where the majority party can redraw the lines. And so if you win, you know, the majority, then you can just make it so that you keep winning. And some of these counties, some of these districts look like a Jackson Pollock painting. It's like, it's ridiculous. You know, it's like, what am I looking at? It's like all these little crab legs and spider arms. It's ridiculous. One of the problems is, in my mind, voter registration. Now, voter registration is kind of like in America, it's kind of an extra step, right? Many of the other nations in the world don't even really have it, or if they have it, it's kind of automatic. In India, for example, where there's 1.2 billion people, there's a specific election officer who will come to each and every person's house to ensure that registration is accurate. Now, they don't have to do anything for it. You know, it's basically automatic in most nations. For my part, I'm not sure why, registration isn't synonymous with DMV. I don't know why we wouldn't automatically be registered, but I'm going to look into it. Another issue I've noticed with registration is what's called voter purging, right? And this is where basically you can just take people off the list. And I'm like, what? And sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's wrong. Obviously, we need a way to take people off the list if they die, right? We need a way to take people off a list in a certain district if they've moved to a different district, with a change of address. But just the way that, just the way it sounds, right? Purge is not usually a good thing, right? Some of us have seen that movie. It's not usually a good thing to purge anything, but, I'm going to look into that and the efficiency there. Voting day. Voting day in America is on a Tuesday. It's on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, usually. Now, I do not know why it's on a Tuesday. I'm not sure why it's not on a weekend, or why it's not, designated a holiday. Again, this is, access versus, security. Now, in this particular case, I'm not sure why, the day of the week would have any effect on security. So I don't see why we wouldn't err on the side of caution for access, especially when, if you move it from Tuesday to Saturday, or if you have Tuesday, for example, become a holiday. I'm not sure why that would change security at all. So I don't see why we wouldn't do this. So I'm just thinking about these problems as we go through. And then the last problem I see is messaging and voter knowledge. Now, this is a hard one to fix. I'm going to tell you a quick story. When I was voting the first year that Obama, the first term that Obama came into office, the first time he was running for president, I went to vote, and I had to register a change of address. I just moved to Cary, and I'm sitting there at the registration desk, and meanwhile, this young kid comes in, and he's, got to be 18 if he's a day, and it's his very first time voting. He's filling out his first time voter's registration, and the lady at the desk is explaining to him, you can fill out basically all of these, here you can fill out single party if you want, to save yourself time and understanding. You can just single party, and the only thing you have to do differently is the judges and the presidency. But all this, you can just put Republican or Democrat if you want. That's all you have to do, just by checking this box. And he's like, oh, okay, Obama's a Republican, right? And I'm sitting there like, oh my God. And I think this is a deeper seated problem in American culture, and that is, again, the partisan nonsense, right? 9/10 of us, I'd say, 90% of us just go in on election day and we're looking for the D or the R next to the name. We have no clue what those candidates stand for. We have no clue if those candidates are good people. We don't care. It's just DR. And that drives me nuts. One of the problems I have with campaign contributions is that, again, they're set up, what we talked about, they're virtually unlimited for those PACs. That's because they can siphon them through the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, who can then basically unlimitedly siphon it to the candidate of choice. But none of the other parties can do that. The Green Party can't do it. Independents can't do it like that. So how is that fair, right? But voter knowledge is a deeper problem. I think that is going to be probably the hardest one to fix. I almost wish, everybody who gets voter registration had to demonstrate at least a bare minimum knowledge of American history and American culture. But that would be, probably not good, because that would restrict access down to the point of, no return. But I'm going to look into that. I'm going to see what the numbers are, and I'm going to really dig into some of this research, and I hope to present my findings for you next time. But just be thinking about these problems as we go forward, and think about how you would solve them, and understand that, to my mind, in a perfect world, we've got good security, but we've got perfect access. Now, I don't know exactly how much fraud happens each election. I guarantee you that there is fraud each election. I don't think it's a very high amount. But I do think that there are different means of committing voter fraud, right? Like, there's different ways to do it. For example, 2018, Georgia had a lot of problems. I encourage you to look into them. Some of them were based around, having certain polling areas shut down, certain machine problems, and Arizona's facing some of them right now. So it's interesting. It's intriguing to watch the democratic process in action and to see different ways in which different candidates are basically suppressed out, and it's fascinating. It's always been a fascinating thing for me, and I think that we need to make every effort to protect a citizen's right to vote, and I think we need to make every effort to have citizens perform their civic duty of voting. So I'm going to be thinking about all these and balancing, security versus access, and speed and efficiency versus accuracy. And of course, there's always that outside chance that things are being hacked. So I'm a little bit wary of digital software, but I think for the most part it's safe. I just want to run some numbers and research that as well. And I hope you guys stick with me for the conclusion to this, which will be my presentation as to what I hope to do to fix this nutty system. And we'll catch you on next time on Couch Talk.